Howdy doody everybody, I'm David Shapcott, I'm a Kiwi, I live in Auckland, New Zealand. But recently I was adopted by a Vietnamese grandmother into her family, and I'm going to tell you how that happened. Now, in 2004 I was over in Hanoi teaching English, and every time I walk around the streets I'd always greet the very old people. Because I have immense respect for these people. These are the people who fought against the French and against the Americans, and who won against both these strong adversaries. Great respect I have. So I'm walking around the streets and I see this old lady right here sitting outside a shop. And I greeted her, "Ciao ba," which is "hello old lady." She said, "Kom thai ba, doi la ba ku." I had no idea what this meant. So back home to my dictionaries, ba ku. Ba ku is a grandmother, a very old lady. Not just an old lady, but a very old lady. Okay. So next time I walk past her, I say, "Ciao ba ku." She says, grabs a hold of a plastic chair from around the corner, hauls it down, says, "Sit down." So, okay, so I sat down, and then she looked around, like she was not interested in me, and then she finally turned back to me and she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a foreigner." That's what expression they use for anyone who's not Vietnamese, foreigner. "I'm a foreigner, I teach English here." "Where are you going now?" "Off to school." "Okay. What time you finish school?" "Oh, about 7. "So about 7 you'll be back here." "Yeah." "Right, off you go." So, duly dismissed, off I went to class. I taught class, but I'm a bit of a chatterbox, and after class some of the students got talking to me, and it was 8 o'clock before I got back to her place. So I arrived back, and there she is, not looking too pleased at all. And she looked up at me and she said, "What's the time?" I looked at my clock. I said, 8 o'clock. She said, "Yes." So then she got me to sit down next to her. Every time I went past her place, she got me to sit down next to her, and she slowly began telling me her story. And she said that in 1945, this man Ho Chi Minh, right here, Ho Chi Minh called on everybody in Vietnam to join in the war against the French, because he said, when war is close to home, even the women must fight. So this is Ba Noi fighting the French. Now, Ba Noi is a pretty fearsome creature and a very capable leader. And so it wasn't very long before they asked her to take over the Tam Hung commune as the first president of the Tam Hung commune. And she was in charge of organising the war, the threefold war. It was war against poverty, war against illiteracy, and war against the French. And she had to organise the whole commune to play their part. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't very long before the French Secret Service found out that she was the leader of the commune, and so she got put into the Hoa La prison, which the Americans who were in there later on referred to as the Hanoi Hilton. And here are some lithographs of Vietnamese Viet Minh people being tortured by the French in the prison. And Ba Noi was also tortured. As you can see from this picture of her, she has lost the sight in one eye. She said they hung her up by her ankles and kicked her head in, so she went blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, and they kicked all the ribs in too. So she was pretty badly tortured. But she never gave up any names. And so as a result, as you can see on my t-shirt here, the Viet Minh called her Kien Kuong, which is the courageous one. And they had great respect for Ba Noi. And so, you know, to have the Viet Minh respect you, it's quite something. Now, Barnoy then started telling me more about the Vietnamese, and she gave me this book here and told me to read this. It is the Tale of Kieu, and this is like an allegorical tale of Vietnam, in the same way that the Iliad and the Odyssey are allegorical tales of the West. So this is a real must for anyone who wants to have a good understanding of Vietnam and what it is like to live in a country that has been overrun by many, many armies. It's a really good book. And then she said to me, look, in order to understand the American War, you need to read this book, which is the Sorrow of War by Bao Ning. And she said, and you should go and meet Bao Ning. So I made an effort, and I found Bao Ning, and here is Bao Ning, and I met up with him. He writes the book, and Bao Ning told me he was one of 500 boys aged 17 in 1965 who joined the Viet Army and headed south to fight the Americans, and he was only one of 10 who returned alive to Hanoi. So, you know, the Americans complain about how much they suffered in Vietnam, but it's on a much lower scale than what this man went through. So horrendous. Now, while he was fighting in the south, the Americans, of course, were bombing North Vietnam horrendously. And Barnoy told me that every night when the bombers arrived, she had to run out of her house and get into one of these little air raid shelters. They just accommodate one person, maybe two, if you're pretty small with a child, and the bombs would rain down. So you know, what an experience. What has she been through? So Barnoy then told me that she had now got permission from the police to invite me into her house. So I duly went down the back of the little alleyway next to the shop and into her house, where I had a cup of tea with her. And this is me having a cup of tea with Barnoy. Now, after a few weeks of this, Barnoy announced to me that she had decided to make me her grandson. And strangely enough, Barnoy looks remarkably like my own grandmother, and that is my grandmother when she was aged 100. And that's Barnoy when she's aged 100. So they look remarkably similar, don't they? Amazing. And so from then on, when I arrived at her place, Barnoy said I was to greet her with Ciao, Ciao, Barnoy, which is grandson greets grandmother. So I duly did this. Now Barnoy, even though she was 100, still was pretty sprightly, and she got around. Here she is getting around, a little walking stick. And of course I'd see her getting around like this, and I'd think I'd better give her a hand. So I would take her arm, and she'd grab the walking stick and whack me and say, I don't need to be helped, I can walk on my own. So I had to respect that. Now, the disadvantage of now becoming a member of Barnoy's family was that the girls who had been brought in from the village to look after Barnoy, to cook all the meals and to work in the shop, at first had great respect for me when I arrived. You know, ciao, Mr. David. Hello, Mr. David. Greetings, Mr. David. Very nice. And here are the girls here. There they go. And they were very nice to me. But as soon as Barnoy announced that I was now a grandson, I now became part of the family, so they could just talk to me like anyone in the family. And so from being ciao, Mr. David, hello, Mr. David, how are you, Mr. David, it was Barnoy, David, no hair has arrived. Or they'd pat me on the stomach and say, when is the baby going to be born? Nice. Well, then Barnoy said to me, look, Mr. David, you are grandson David, you are a school teacher so you can help us. All my great grandchildren need extra English lessons so you can teach them. So you come here tomorrow night at 5 o'clock and Dan, who's 8 years old, she will take you to Twee's place where all the grandchildren are meeting. So this is Dan. There she is, little 8-year-old kid. So I duly went round there and Dan took my hand and said, come with me. And off we went into the streets of Hanoi hand in hand. And I thought, oh God, does this ever look dodgy? An old Western man walking hand in hand with an 8-year-old Vietnamese girl. Please God, don't let anyone I know come along. Well, of course, immediately we stopped. The first street we stopped at, Pho Hue Street, sorry. Pulling up at the intersection was all of the teachers from my school heading into class for the evening. And, oh, hi David, you're not going to class tonight? No. Oh, what are you doing tonight? You know, just visiting people. Oh God, I thought, don't say anything, just, you know, just let it go. Anyway, I duly went off and taught the class, and then the next night when I was to go to Twee's place, I headed into the street. Now, every street in Hanoi has an old lady or a group of old ladies sitting on the side of the street. And in fact, Graham Greene, in his novel, The Quiet American, talked about this. And he said that because he couldn't speak Vietnamese, that he had no idea what these old ladies saw, their world, anything about them, and he had no access to it at all. This is a brilliant book and a real must for anyone who wants to understand Vietnam. It's really, really good. So I'm walking along there the next day and I couldn't find Twee's place anywhere. I went up and down the street that I knew it was in, no luck. Anyway, on the side of the road, the old lady who sat on the side of the road, this one here, she walked up to me. Excuse me, you are the foreigner who teaches the children at Twee's place. Yeah, that's right. But I'm lost. Ah, I will show you where Twee's place is. You follow me. Oh, thank you very much. And I thought, this is great. The old ladies on the side of the road, I can talk to them, I can get into their world, they can relate to me, and they treat me, you know, like Barnoy's grandson. This is marvellous. So that's the first part of my story about becoming Barnoy's grandson, having a Vietnamese grandmother, and I'll get part 2 going in the next few days. So thank you for watching. Bye.